Hello, my girlfriend said. I love you, but I'm not ready for a boring, settled relationship yet. I want to have fun before committing to someone stable like you. So I let her go and focused on living my own life. Months later, she came back wanting another chance with me. My name is Stanley. I am 29, and I work an office job in San Francisco doing data entry for a mid-sized insurance company. It is not a glamorous job, and I am not a manager or anything like that. I mostly review digital claim forms, correct mistakes in records, and organize reports for other departments. My routine is pretty steady. I leave my apartment around 8, sit behind a screen most of the day, grab lunch at the same few places near the office, then go home and try to decompress. I like quiet evenings, cooking simple meals, watching something online, and occasionally meeting a friend for coffee on weekends. My girlfriend was Michelle. She was 27 and worked as a hairdresser at a busy salon in the Mission District. We had been together for a little over 2 years. We did not officially live together, but she spent most weekends at my apartment and had a small stack of clothes in my closet. Our lifestyles were very different. Michelle thrived on constant social energy. Her job meant she talked to people all day, and many of her coworkers liked going out almost every night after their shifts. Late dinners, bars, birthday parties, random gatherings. My life moved slower. At first, that difference seemed harmless. I figured we balanced each other out. Looking back now, I realized the signs were already there for a while. The first moment things clearly shifted happened on a Tuesday night at my apartment. I had gotten home from work and made something simple for dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and a salad. Michelle showed up already in a bad mood. She had worked a long shift at the salon and complained that one of her coworkers had dragged her to drinks the night before. Halfway through dinner, she suddenly started talking about how predictable I was. Not in a thoughtful way. More like she was listing a problem she had been thinking about for a while. She said I was stable, calm, and easy to rely on. Then she said those exact things were why she felt bored. According to her, my life felt settled already, and she was not ready for that kind of relationship yet. She said she still wanted to have fun, go out, meet new people, and enjoy life before committing to someone stable like me. The way she said it made it sound like I was a future retirement plan instead of her boyfriend. I did not argue with her. But the conversation did not go the way she expected. Michelle expected an argument. I could see it on her face while she was explaining how she needed more excitement in her life. She kept pausing like she was waiting for me to interrupt or defend myself. But I did not do that. I just listened and finished my food. When she finally said the line that stuck with me the most, I understood exactly what she was trying to do. She said she loved me, but she was not ready for a boring, settled relationship yet. She said I was the kind of guy someone ends up with later when they want stability. Then she said she wanted to have fun before committing to someone stable like me. The tone was not apologetic. It sounded almost like she expected me to wait for her while she figured things out. Like I was some kind of safe parking spot she could return to later. So I asked one simple question. I asked if she was saying she wanted to break up. Michelle hesitated for a second, but then nodded. She said she thought it would be better if we both had space. She kept repeating that it was not about me doing anything wrong. She said I was a great boyfriend. Too great was actually the phrase she used. Apparently, I was so stable that it made her feel like she was skipping a phase of her life. I remember sitting there thinking about how strange that logic sounded. Most people spend years looking for a relationship where both people treat each other well. Michelle was explaining that she needed to leave one because it was too calm. I did not beg her to stay. I did not try to convince her that she was making a mistake. Instead, I just said that if she felt that way, then breaking up was probably the right decision. That seemed to surprise her more than anything else that night. She asked if I was really okay with it. I told her that if someone believes a relationship is holding them back from having the life they want, then they should go live that life. There is no point forcing someone to stay. The conversation ended shortly after that. She packed the few things she kept at my apartment into a tote bag. Before leaving, she hugged me and said she hoped we could stay friends. I told her that probably would not happen. That was the last time I saw Michelle for several months. And honestly, once she walked out that door, I assumed that chapter of my life was finished. The first couple weeks after the breakup were quieter than I expected. Michelle had been a big presence in my routine. She was at my apartment most weekends and sometimes showed up randomly after work if she had a slow day at the salon. Once that stopped, the apartment felt strangely calm. At first, I kept noticing the little gaps she left behind. Her extra toothbrush was gone. The drawer she used in my dresser was empty. Even the random hair clips that used to end up on my kitchen counter disappeared. But the adjustment was easier than I thought it would be. I kept the same routine. Work during the week, gym a few evenings, cooking at home, catching up with a couple friends on weekends. One thing I did change was how much time I spent sitting around the apartment. When Michelle and I were together, a lot of my free time revolved around whatever plans she wanted to make. Sometimes that meant going out. Sometimes it meant waiting around to see if she would show up after work. Without that uncertainty, my schedule became simpler. If I wanted to go somewhere, I just went. I started exploring parts of San Francisco I had not really bothered with before. Small cafes, parks, random neighborhoods that were only a short train ride away. Meanwhile, I occasionally heard small updates about Michelle through mutual friends. Nothing dramatic, just the kind of things people mention casually. Apparently, she had been going out a lot more. Bars, parties, late nights with co-workers from the salon. Which honestly made sense. That was the lifestyle she said she wanted. I did not feel angry about it. If anything, I figured she was doing exactly what she said she needed to do. A few of my friends asked if I thought she would eventually come back. I told them I doubted it. Michelle had been very clear about wanting freedom and excitement. Someone like me, with a predictable schedule and a quiet apartment, probably was not very appealing compared to that world. So I moved forward assuming our relationship was finished for good. And for several months, that assumption seemed completely correct. Until one random evening when my phone lit up with a message from a number I had not seen in a long time. It was Michelle, and the first thing she wrote made it clear that the situation was about to get complicated again. The message from Michelle showed up on a Thursday evening while I was still at my desk. It had been about 4 months since the breakup. By that point, a lot of things in my life had settled into a new routine, and one of the biggest changes had actually happened at work. About 6 weeks earlier, my supervisor pulled me aside after a department meeting. Our team handles a large volume of claim records and internal documentation, and over the last year, I had ended up helping fix a lot of messy systems that nobody else wanted to deal with. Nothing dramatic, just spreadsheets, tracking files, and correcting errors that kept slowing people down. Apparently, management had noticed. My supervisor told me they were creating a new role that focused on reviewing incoming claim data and coordinating with other departments when records needed corrections. It was still an office position, but it came with more responsibility and a small pay increase. Not a huge promotion, but definitely a step forward. The biggest difference was that people now came to me when something in the system was wrong instead of the other way around. It also meant my workdays felt more structured. I had clearer tasks, a bit more authority in the department, and honestly a lot less boredom staring at the same repetitive entries all day. By the time Michelle's message appeared on my phone, I had just finished reviewing a batch of reports and was getting ready to leave the office. Her message was short. Hey Stanley, I know it has been a while. I was wondering if you would maybe want to catch up sometime. Just seeing her name pop up again felt strange. For months, I had assumed we were both moving in completely different directions. So I read the message twice before replying. Eventually, I sent something simple back. I asked what she meant by catch up. Her response came almost immediately. She said she had been thinking about me a lot lately, and she wondered if we could meet for coffee and talk. That was the moment I realized something had clearly changed on her side. Because the version of Michelle who walked out of my apartment months earlier did not look like someone who planned on coming back. I stared at Michelle's message for a few minutes before answering. Part of me expected to feel some kind of emotional reaction seeing her name again. Anger, curiosity, maybe even nostalgia. But mostly I just felt cautious. When someone leaves a relationship because they want a completely different lifestyle, that decision usually means the chapter is closed. People do not normally reverse that kind of decision without a reason. So before replying, I tried to think about what had realistically changed in 4 months. My life was calmer now. Work was going well after the promotion. My routine felt stable. My weekends were simple but predictable, and honestly, I liked that. There was no chaos. No uncertainty about whether someone was going to show up or cancel plans because a party sounded more interesting. Michelle had chosen the opposite direction when we broke up, and that was fine. But it also meant reopening that door would probably bring the same conflict back into my life. After thinking about it for a while, I typed a response. I told her I appreciated her reaching out, but I did not think meeting up would be a good idea. I kept the message polite and direct. No accusations. No emotional speech. Just a simple boundary. For a few minutes, there was no response. Then my phone buzzed again. Michelle asked why. That question told me something important immediately. She sounded confused. Like she expected the invitation alone to be enough for me to say yes. I replied honestly. I told her that when we broke up, she had been very clear about what she wanted from life, and I had taken her seriously. She wanted freedom and excitement. I told her I assumed she was still living that life. Meeting up with an ex when nothing had actually changed did not make much sense to me. A couple minutes passed before she replied again. Her next message was longer, and the tone was completely different from the confident person who had walked out of my apartment months earlier. She said things had not turned out the way she expected. Michelle sent 3 messages in a row. The first one said she knew I probably thought she just wanted attention again. The second one said things had not gone the way she imagined after we broke up. The third message was the one that made me pause. She said she missed the kind of stability we had. That word stood out immediately. Stability was the exact thing she had complained about when she left. I leaned back in my chair at my desk and read the messages again. Michelle started explaining that the last few months had been fun at first. She had been going out almost every night with coworkers from the salon. Parties, bars, different groups of people every weekend. According to her, it felt exciting for a while. But eventually the excitement wore off. She said most of the people she had been spending time with were only interested in going out and drinking. Conversations never went deeper than the next party or the next event. Then she started mentioning dating. Apparently, she had gone out with a few different guys during those months. None of it lasted. Some of them were unreliable. Some disappeared after a couple weeks. One guy apparently still lived with his parents despite being 32. She wrote all of this in a tone that sounded frustrated more than anything else. Then she said something that made the situation very clear. She said after dealing with all of that chaos, she started realizing how different things had been with me. She said I was calm, dependable, and easy to build a life with. In other words, all the same things she used to call boring. At the end of the message, she asked again if we could meet. Just coffee. Just to talk. I sat there looking at my phone for a while. It was not difficult to understand what was happening. Michelle had spent several months chasing the lifestyle she thought she wanted, and now she was starting to see the downside of it. The problem was that realization did not automatically mean I wanted to reopen a relationship that had already ended. I read Michelle's messages one more time before answering. Nothing she wrote was surprising. Honestly, it sounded exactly like the situation most people expect when someone leaves a stable relationship chasing excitement. At first, everything feels new and fun. Then eventually the reality shows up. But understanding that did not mean I wanted to rewind my life back to where it was before. So I sent one final message. I told her I was glad she had taken time to figure out what she wanted. I said I genuinely hoped things worked out for her. But I also told her that our relationship ended when she decided stability was something she did not want. I had taken that seriously and moved on. Then I said I was not interested in restarting something that had already been closed. A few seconds later, the typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Eventually, another message came through. Michelle said I was being unfair. She said people are allowed to realize they made mistakes. I replied once more and kept it simple. I said realizing a mistake does not mean the other person has to undo their life to fix it. After that, I blocked her number, not out of anger, just because the conversation had reached its natural ending. I left the office, went to the gym like I usually do on Thursdays, and tried not to think about it anymore. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was already dark. I had just finished cooking something simple and sat down on the couch when I heard a knock on the door. At first, I ignored it, but then the knocking came again, louder this time. I walked over and checked through the small peephole. Michelle was standing in the hallway. She looked upset and slightly out of breath like she had rushed there. I did not open the door. Through the door, I heard her say my name. Then she started talking quickly. She said she knew I had blocked her, and that was why she came in person. Then her tone changed completely. She started apologizing. Over and over. She said she made a mistake leaving. She said she missed me and everything we had. Then she said something that honestly made the whole situation feel surreal. She started begging me to take her back. I stayed standing behind the door while Michelle kept talking. At first it sounded like panic more than anything else. Her voice was shaky and rushed, like she had been rehearsing what to say during the drive over, but lost control once she actually got there. She kept repeating that she was sorry. Sorry for leaving. Sorry for saying the things she said that night at my apartment. Sorry for acting like our relationship was something she could just pause and return to later. I still did not open the door. Instead, I just stood there quietly while she continued. At one point, she knocked again, softer this time. Then she said something that made it clear she genuinely believed I would eventually give in. She said she knew I still loved her and that I was just being stubborn. That was the first moment the frustration really hit me. Because even after everything, she still seemed to think this situation was just temporary resistance. Like if she apologized enough, the old version of our relationship would automatically restart. Through the door, I finally spoke. I told her she needed to go home. For a few seconds, there was silence in the hallway. Then she started talking again, but this time her voice sounded more desperate. She said she had been thinking about me for months. She said every time something went wrong with one of the guys she dated, she realized how different things had been with me. How calm everything felt. How safe it felt. Again, all the things she used to describe as boring. I told her that was exactly the problem. She did not want those things when she had them. Now she wanted them back because the alternative did not work out. That was not a good reason to restart a relationship. Another long pause followed. Then she asked if we could at least talk face to face for a few minutes. I told her no. The conversation we needed to have had already happened months ago in my kitchen, and that conversation ended when she chose a different life. After that, I heard her sigh heavily on the other side of the door. For a moment, the hallway went completely quiet. Then she said one last thing before leaving. She said she thought I was the kind of person who forgives people. That comment stayed in my head long after I heard the elevator doors close. The hallway stayed quiet after Michelle left. I stood by the door for another minute just to make sure she was actually gone. The building walls are thin enough that you can usually hear the elevator doors open and close from my unit, and a few seconds later, I heard exactly that. Only then did I walk back into the living room. For a while, I just sat there thinking about how strange the whole situation felt. A year earlier, I probably would have reacted very differently if Michelle showed up at my door apologizing and asking for another chance. Back then, I would have seen it as proof that the relationship meant something to her. Now it felt more like confirmation of something else entirely. Michelle did not come back because our relationship suddenly became valuable. She came back because the alternative lifestyle she chose turned out to be unstable and disappointing. That realization made the decision much easier. I was not interested in being someone's backup plan, especially not after she explained so clearly why she thought leaving was the better option. The next morning, I woke up expecting to see more attempts to contact me, but there were none. My phone stayed quiet during breakfast and the commute to work. By the time I reached my desk, I assumed the situation had finally settled. For most of the day, nothing unusual happened. I went through my usual tasks, reviewing claim records and checking reports for errors. Around midday, I had a short meeting with my supervisor about a new set of files our team would be handling. Everything felt normal, until my phone buzzed during lunch. It was not Michelle's number. Instead, it was a message from a mutual friend we both knew. The message was short. He asked if everything was okay between me and Michelle. Apparently, she had been telling people that I refused to even talk to her after she tried to fix things, which meant the story was already starting to spread through our shared social circle. And judging by the tone of that message, I had a feeling Michelle's version of events was very different from mine. When I read the message from our mutual friend, I realized something immediately. Michelle was trying to reshape the situation. The text said she had told a few people that she reached out to me to fix things, and that I completely shut her down without even hearing her out. Technically, that was not true. We had talked, just not in the way she wanted. I replied to my friend and kept it simple. I told him Michelle and I already had the conversation that mattered months ago when she decided she did not want a stable relationship. I said she recently tried to come back, but I was not interested in restarting something that had already ended. He responded with a short message saying that made more sense. Apparently, the version Michelle told sounded vague. After that exchange, I put my phone away and went back to work. And that was honestly the last real development in the situation. Michelle did not come back to my apartment again. She did not try contacting me from another number. As far as I know, she eventually stopped talking about it to other people too. Over time, the whole thing just faded into the background of everyday life. Looking back now, the most interesting part of the situation is how differently Michelle and I saw the relationship. For me, stability was the point. Having a calm routine, a reliable partner, and a predictable life together was the goal. For Michelle, stability was something she thought she could leave and then return to whenever she decided she was done experimenting with other lifestyles. That difference in thinking was the real reason the relationship could not work. Once someone shows they see you as a backup option for later, the trust that makes a relationship possible is already gone. And honestly, after everything that happened, I never regretted closing that door when I had the chance. Bye-bye.